Here we go. It's back to school again, and I'm very sorry to tell you, you've probably noticed, I'm not your regular teacher. You've got the substitute teacher today, but I'm hoping that you can all refrain from mucking up just for a little while. Now, I have two helpers. This is going to be very practical today. So Toby is going to go over this side and hand out some paper and pens to people on this side of the church. And Rain is going to hand out some paper and pens to people on this side of the church. Now just hang on to those. I'll tell you what to do with them in a little bit. So if you guys want to start handing them out, make sure everybody gets a paper and some pen. Now, because I'm the substitute teacher, here we go. I'm not very good at using the equipment, as you can see. I'd like the next slide, if you can arrange it for me. Thank you. I'd like to win your attention by doing a grab for attention with some cat pictures. So can anybody except Tanya and Colleen down the front here tell me who this is? And I've got another picture, please. Can anybody tell me who this is? It's Tassie. And how would you know that? I mean, I don't think, Tanya gets up in the morning and writes on her to-do list, must tell people all about Tassie today. She does. I just thought that she just loved Tassie so much that it just came naturally. She just can't help herself. And so when we come to thinking about sharing our faith, next slide please, it could be, we need to really examine, first of all, here we go. It wasn't on, okay. It could help if we have the right motivation. So we heard from Pastor Adam a few weeks ago about the woman at the well that he spoke to. And this woman, after Jesus spoke to her, went away and she told everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" Now, no one told her to go and do that. She just, after meeting Jesus, she just couldn't help but telling everybody. And, wrong direction. I'll get the hang of this eventually. And then we have Jesus calling disciples. And the first up, he calls Andrew. And Andrew, first thing he does is he runs off to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah." And he brought him to Jesus. And then, a few verses later, Jesus calls Philip and says, "Follow me." And Philip went and found Nathanael and told him, "We found the one Moses wrote about." So these guys are just so excited about Jesus that they can't help themselves. And here is a picture of a cup of tea that is not a cup of tea I have made. And I know this because it doesn't have anywhere near enough liquid in it. If I made you a cup of tea, you tried to walk away, you'd have to walk really slowly so that it didn't spill because it would be full to the brim. And, if anyone bumped into you, it would just be everywhere. And I've been reading a book by someone called KJ Ramsey lately, and she talks about meeting this person. And she said this person was just so full of Jesus' love and so full of Jesus' grace and so full of satisfaction in God that, the slightest bump of this person, all of that grace and love of Jesus just comes spilling out. And that's the kind of person that, we want to be. And you might say, well, all right, you've lost me already. I'm not feeling that excited about God right now. So first up, I'd like to say, a bit of revision for you. Go listen to the last 2 weeks' sermons by Pastor David about, getting into the Bible and prayer. And, if you're really feeling like you are struggling with being excited about God, have a chat to Pastor David or Pastor Adam, and I'm sure they'd love to talk to you about, how you can really get into God and get excited. And secondly, in our motivation, I've gone way too far. We need to realise that people need God. So in the Bible it tells us that whoever has the Son has life, and whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life. But sometimes we look at people and we think, they don't have God in their life, but they seem to have everything together, more than I do, and they seem pretty happy, and maybe they don't need God or don't feel like they need God. But I really don't think that's true. I think that without Jesus in our life, we're all really missing something. And, if people seem that they're doing okay, I think that's a thin veneer of looking okay. And we really need to ask God to just show us below the surface in people's lives and show us their need of Him, so that we can be filled with His heart of love towards them and want to reach out. So, thinking about our motivation, let's move on to actually how do we go on to share our faith. And it's all about relationship, basically. And we have that modelled in the fact that Jesus came down, became a human and walked among us. God didn't just try to impress us with fancy logic. He actually walked among us and related to us as a person. And we've been reading about that this morning in our Sabbath school, just what a big, how humble that was of Jesus to do that. And He's sent us now to relate to other people, because God's all about relationship. And I read a book a couple of years ago by a guy called Sam Chan. And the book was called How to Talk About Jesus Without Being That Guy, because none of us want to be that guy that everyone, thinks is just really strange. And he was saying that it's all about relationship. He's saying, people don't care about the facts so much if you've got no relationship with them. Like you could meet, someone, on a plane and tell them about Jesus, and it's a good thing to do. It might get them thinking, but it's not going to have anywhere near the same effect on them as if that person maybe has worked with you for 5 years, you've been a part of their life, they know you care about them, they've seen your character, and you tell them about God, they're going to pay a lot more attention to that. And there's a really good thing here is that I'm pretty sure that all of you actually have relationships. I could be wrong, but I reckon that all of you, are either at school with other people or work with other people or live maybe even in a street where there's other people or do like a hobby or a sport with other people. And so you all know people, but sometimes we kind of just know people, in the sense that we could talk about the weather with them, but we don't really know them much better than that. And, we're probably not going to have much influence on their life in that case. So I'm going to talk today about levelling those relationships up. And I'll get this. I will. So I've got an equation for you all that's really important for you to remember. And this equation, we're doing some maths in school today, is the degree of influence you have on any person is directly proportional to the time that you invest in that person. So someone's not going to take you very seriously if you don't care about them and if you're not involved with their life. So, if you're thinking about people you work with or go to school with and how you can actually get to have that level of relationship where you can talk about more than the weather with them, maybe you could invite someone from work to have lunch with you in your lunch break, or maybe you could do something with them after work. Now, here's a wild idea. Maybe if that person, does art or is in a band or something, you could go and see, when they put on an art show or when their band plays. I think sometimes we're good at inviting people to stuff we have on at church. We've got a special week and I'm going to invite all my friends, and people don't come and we're like, well, I totally tried. I invited them. But if you think about whether you've ever been to something they've invited you to or whether you've shown an interest in their life, if you show an interest in their life, they're much more likely to show an interest in what you have to say as well. And Jesus was very good at showing an interest in other people's lives. And you might say, for instance, that, okay, I work with Christians, or I go to school with Christians, and all the people I play sport with and hang out with are Christians. You need some new friends. I'm not saying it's not good to have Christian friends, but you need to be also looking out to how you can connect with other people who don't know God as well. And Jesus was really good at displaying this. I might say, well, I'm sorry, but my schedule is completely full. There's no time for anything else. But you can ask yourself, maybe, is there something that I do already that I can include other people in? For example, at Christmas time, Jennifer was cooking and she was making some special Christmas food, and she included me in that. She asked me to come and cook with her, and that was just a beautiful time of relationship. And I know that Jeff, for example, goes motorbike riding with some guys, and, they probably spend a lot of their time just riding, but I'm sure there's, other times when they kind of have a chat and a bit of a drink maybe. I know that Narelle, pick on you too, goes riding with people she meets on Facebook, and eventually, relationships form there, and you get to know each other at that deeper level. And I guess Jesus figured, well, he eats, he's got to eat, so he went out and he ate one Sabbath at the home of a leading Pharisee. And it's not like Jesus didn't already have friends. He had 12 disciples. But he was still deliberately reaching out to other people. And in Luke 19, we're told that Jesus also went and ate at the home of Zacchaeus. So he's spending this time really investing in other people's lives. So it's time for another story now. Back in that book that I was talking about by Sam Chan, he says that it's not enough often to just know one Christian, because each of us, if you think about it, whether it's about your political views or your views on vaccines or whatever, we often tend to surround ourselves with people that agree with us. And so often you'll find even your friends on social media or the people you hang out with are people that feed back your opinions to you and make you feel good about them. So if, you're at a workplace and you're the only Christian, you might form a good relationship with people there, and they might start to think about, maybe, they might start to be interested in your beliefs and what you have to say. But if you're the only voice in their life that is telling them that, some guy dying 2,000 years ago actually makes a difference to their life and their future, they might think that you're just, a nice person but slightly crazy. But if they, meet, say, 4 or 5 Christians, and they see God in all of your lives, and they might start to think, hey, these guys might actually, there might be something to this belief. And I can totally attest to this, because 23 years ago, it's a long time ago, I was invited by 2 people who are here today to go to a seminar at an Adventist church in Sydney. And I'm pretty sure that it would have been a brilliant presentation of facts about God. But I left that meeting completely, unchanged by that. Didn't even think about it, because that was, I guess, some facts coming in, but I didn't really, have a strong relationship with those people. And it didn't mean much to me. But then 5 years ago, I actually struck up quite the friendship with one of those people. And, I'd been told, all the other voices in my life told me that Adventists, they had weird rules about what they ate. They had weird rules about what they do. They basically believed some really strange things and did some really strange things. And, don't get too close to them. But this person, getting to know them really kind of challenged that belief in my life. But once again, they were one person, and I thought, well, yeah, they're a really nice person, and they don't seem to be all about rules. They seem to be really, loving and all about God's grace, and have this really vibrant relationship with God. But yeah, like I said, one person. But then this person, Narelle, also started inviting me to do stuff with other people. So I went hiking with some unlikely characters like the Fowlers and Andrew, and went bike riding with Mark. And the more people that I met from this church, the harder it was for me to see you guys as weird. I'm sorry. I started wondering, is everything I've heard really right? And I started actually asking a lot of questions then. So there were a lot of awkward conversations where I just come out and say, hey, what do you guys actually do on the Sabbath? And what do you actually believe about this and that and something else? I'd heard probably all those facts 23 years ago, but they'd made absolutely no impression on me without this factor of relationship and community, seeing God's love and God's light in the life of several different people. And so I really agree with that point. And so what Sam was saying in this book is that we need to get a bit brave and mix up our friend groups. So you might like to keep your church friends over here and your work friends over there and not mix them, but he's saying, mix them up. So say you've got a work friend and a church friend who both really love rollerblading. Hopefully you're okay at rollerblading too. And you can all go rollerblading together. Just, you don't have to sit around and deliberately talk about God, but do something together and mix them up. Or say, heaven forbid, that your friend invites you to a Tupperware party. Your friend from work, go and say, hey, can I bring someone else along and drag some other poor codger from church with you to that Tupperware party? And just, build those connections between people so that they've got multiple points of influence. And I think this is really important, is just be honest and open about God. So I think we're often scared to talk about God, especially in groups of people who don't know God and, might be, like some of my friends post stuff on social media about, horrible things that, Christians might have said in the media or something, and we might feel afraid to talk about God in front of them. But I've found that people are okay with you sharing your experience of God. They don't want you to tell them what to believe, basically. People are intelligent. They can think for themselves. They don't want you to tell them what to think. But if you tell them, you've been struggling with something and then you went to church or read your Bible and, you got some real insight into that issue, that's the sort of thing you can talk to your friends about. And I've found that even friends who seem on the surface quite anti kind of Christian will often be really happy to engage with me on that because they're talking, about something that's personal to me, not something that I'm asking them to do. So I've got my list of don'ts here. Here we go. So I can't actually read them. Here we go. So first one is don't be afraid to talk about God. And one example of this is last January, I'd been here, I'd walked in the door a whole year beforehand and I was pretty excited about, what God had done in my life at that time. And I just got the urge to tell the world about it at that point. So I wrote this really epically long post on Facebook and I thought maybe I'll have no friends at the end of this. But I just, talked about, what God had done in my life and how he'd brought me here and what he'd taught me. And so many people, like these friends that I said that often post negative stuff about Christianity, commented on that post and said, we've actually seen changes in your life that have been really great and this has been a really great thing for you. And other people, messaged and said, can we meet up for coffee and talk about this? And other people just, that might live a bit further away just talked about it with me online for a while. And so I didn't seem to offend anybody with that post. One of my friends was writing to tell me she completely disagreed with everything that I'd done. But we still had a really good conversation about it. And, we left that conversation as friends. And don't assume that people are not interested. I've made this mistake a couple of times. I've been actually asked to speak with particular people who've showed up to things or whatever, and I've taken one look at them and thought, wow, that girl's way too cool to want to even talk to me, and there's no way she's really actually interested in any of this. And I've tried to avoid it, but, somehow I've been shoved into the situation anyway, and I've been just blown away sometimes at the interest people have in spiritual things and in God, and we can't write them off. I think instead of assuming that they're not interested, we have to assume that God's working in their life, because the reality is God is reaching out to everybody that you know with his love, and we just have to assume that he's working there and that he might want us in that moment to speak into that. And this one might seem really stupid, the next one, don't change the topic when they mention God. But, if anyone's brave, have you done this? I've done it so many times. I don't know why, whether it's just a panic in the moment or whether, you think, this is going to go badly. But, you make a joke or you deflect or you just completely start talking about something else. And so can I just say to you, if you've done that, don't feel too guilty, because I think a lot of us have. But what you should do is go away from that and just, what I've done is gone away and just really prayed that God will help me when I'm back in that situation to be just honest and open and not to hide my faith and not to hide what God means to me. And he's always given me another opportunity when I've done that. I think, he just keeps sending me back till I get it right sometimes. But, even if people, bring up God in kind of a negative way, you can just really listen to their experience and, say, well, maybe what happened to them wasn't right, but that doesn't gel with your view of God. But, always be gentle with them and affirming rather than, coming out and attacking what they've said. Oops, I missed the last one, did I? Okay, and last one is, second last, don't be afraid to ask if they want to know more. Sometimes people, might show some interest and we kind of are too scared to offer them more because we don't want to scare them off, but we don't leave them hanging. For example, when I posted that thing on Facebook about coming to this church, somebody, messaged and said, hey, what church is it you're going to? And I said, well, Kathy, why don't you come with? And here she is. So, or if somebody's asking you lots of questions about the Bible, don't be afraid to say, hey, we could actually study together, like just topics that you're interested in, or we could do some just general Bible study to learn more about what it is that, we believe and who Jesus is. So don't be afraid to do that. And don't be afraid to involve people. Sometimes we need to see community in action and feel a part of it before we can really believe. So, don't be afraid to invite people along and get them to help out. Whoop, too fast again. The last of my 3 points is that we really need to be intentional about this. So all that stuff about making friends is great, but we need to remember that there is a reason why we need to connect with people as well. And in Matthew, Jesus, before he ascended up to heaven, said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. So you might think, well, I'm a teacher or, a lawyer or ophthalmologist or whatever. But Jesus says we've got one job, and that's to make disciples. And it's a really important job. It's so important. So what we can do, first up, is we need to pray. Because as Jesus just promised in that verse I read, Jesus has promised to be with us always. This is his work that he's sending us to do. He cares about it. He's going to go with us every step of the way. So we really need to pray. And one time I was going for a ride with a friend, and it's just been on my heart that I just really wanted to talk to her about God, and I just didn't know how to. And I just really prayed before that ride that God would turn the conversation to spiritual things. And, as I said before, sometimes I panic, got on that ride and I thought, I'm not going to mention God. That's just, just weird. And but very soon into that ride, she started telling me that she'd grown up in a family that they weren't even allowed to mention God. And now her husband was talking about going to church somewhere, and that was kind of, all the big new thing for her. And we just had the best conversation. And I thought, wow, why don't I pray like that all the time? Why don't I pray like that every day? And secondly, we need to be prepared. So in 1 Peter, we're told, in your hearts, honour Christ the Lord as holy, always prepared to make a defence to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do this with gentleness and respect. So I don't know if you have thought about what you'd say if someone asks you why you're a Christian. If someone asked you what being a Christian actually means to you, what would you say to them? If someone said, hey, how do you even become a Christian? Do you know what you'd say to them? Would you be able to lead a Bible study with a friend if they were interested to know more? If that kind of scares you, all those thoughts, I'm sure that Pastor David and Pastor Adam would love to talk to you about that. I'm sure it would be awesome to start a little group of people who wanted to explore how to be prepared in that way. So get on there and ask them about that. And right now, I'm hoping, has everyone got a bit of paper and a pen? Now we're going to do a little practical. It won't take very long, I promise, and you can finish it at home. But I didn't want to just send you home to do it because I want to make sure you actually really do at least start this process. So when you're thinking about what your next step is your next step really getting more into God yourself so that you're excited to tell people about God? Is it... And I missed a story, and I'm just going to tell you really quickly. I was so excited about God when I was going to make my profession of faith here a couple of years ago, and I was planning to get up and make sure I put, the gospel into what I said, and I wanted everyone to come, everyone. So I asked my family, which is pretty normal, asked my friends, pretty normal. I asked my boss, and I asked the person who gives me remedial massage. I asked my hairdresser, and I'm sure there were other people I asked as well. And only my family came because they love me. But all of those people that I'd asked, as much as that was probably a really, really weird thing to do, as I saw them over the coming weeks, they all actually just asked me heaps of questions about it, heaps of questions. And even now we'll sometimes ask about it. So, it's good to, put yourself out there with God sometimes. So think about what your next step is. So maybe you want to get some training. Maybe you want to start inviting friends to do some things that will just level up your relationships. But that's the first thing I want you to write down is what your next step is personally. And the second thing I want you to write down is I want 3 names on your piece of paper who you're going to pray for. Are there 3 people in your life that you would really like to see know God, that you can start praying for? And for each of those people, what's your next step? Is it to, invite them out to have lunch together, or is it to, do you think they're actually interested and you should invite them to church or to do something else? Or do you just really need to pray to God that He'll help turn those conversations to more deeper things that will eventually lead to you being able to share your faith? And if you can't think of 3 people, then you need to pray that God will show you 3 people He wants you to reach out to. And the third thing, this is probably, the scariest, I reckon, is there someone you can share this journey with? Is there a friend that you already talked to about your walk with God that you can pray with and encourage each other to be reaching out? Or is this something else you need to pray about, is that God will bring someone else into your life that you can share this journey with? So just going to pray now, and then I just encourage you to spend, the next minute or so to just maybe pray yourself very quickly and just ask God to help you with this. And I'd really encourage you to, put this in your Bible if you use a Bible rather than your phone, or put it somewhere where you can see it, and pick this piece of paper up and pray through it, once a week or something, and just really be thinking about how you can share what you have with others, because we've got something amazing in knowing God. All right, let's pray. God, I just thank you that you have gone out of your way to relate to us, and that you've done everything so that we might know you. And God, I just ask that you'll help each of us to realise just what a huge thing that is, and just how wonderful knowing you is, and how you make a difference in our life. And God, I just ask that you'll help us to just really be burdened with sharing that with others, and that you'll show us who you want to share that with, and Lord, that you'll make it as natural as anything, that it won't be weird, we won't feel like we have to say certain things or do certain things, Lord, but you'll just guide those conversations and help people to just see you in the way that we relate to them. And God, I just ask that you'll help each of us to be really intentional with trying to connect with others and show them your love, and that you'll just really encourage us in doing that. Amen. And can I just say, if you see your friend respond, that's exciting, and you will be excited about God, and you'll start talking about God to everybody. So, all right, have a great week, people.